Before we begin, quick shout out to Dungeon Alchemist, AI map generation software. Check out their Kickstarter, link in the description. DLC, downloadable content, is a bit of a dirty word amongst gamers, and honestly, it's not hard to see why. More often than not, it's just used to sell you content that should have been in the game to begin with. Plus, it's paved the way for stuff like microtransaction abuse, season passes, and battle passes, to say nothing of the controversy and profits caused by... At the end of the day, though, DLC is ultimately a tool, albeit one used for greed most of the time, but a tool nonetheless. So with that in mind, I feel that it's important to highlight all the great DLC we've had over the years. In particular, I'm looking at the best DLC bosses. The rules for this list are simple. Entries will be ranked on how good the fight itself is and how much it adds to the story. So let's jam. These are the top 10 DLC bosses in gaming. A small bit of backstory for this. Among the various other Death Drive titles in Travis Strikes Again is an unfinished game called Killer Machine. This neglected gem was hyped up as an epic, gory action game with an awesome 70s manga-like intro. Well, after finishing the main story, you finally get access to the full package, and it's pinball. They don't even try to hide it. It's a giant glorified pinball machine. I mean, it's a really nice looking pinball machine, and it is kind of clever how they utilize the mechanics into an action game.
Yeah, that's cool and all, but can you compete with this? Don't judge me, your hearts know the truth.
Getting back on topic, the boss for this bonus level is Silverface, and he is hilariously miscast. He's supposed to be this big, bad, psycho football player. Instead, he's this socially awkward snowflake who can't stand violence and is absolutely adamant about his role as a DLC boss. Unfortunately, rules are rules, and after you push his buttons one too many times, he's ready to unload all his frustration onto you. And I'm not gonna lie, for someone so squeamish about violence, Silverface is pretty good at delivering a punch. Fortunately, you can trick the disgruntled millennial so you can catch your breath and take a chunk out of him. The reason why this fight is so low on the list is that while it isn't bad by any means, it's standard. Take away the pinball-like setup and it's just another typical beatdown. However, everything around the fight is pure genius. It proudly went meta on the whole scenario, from the level being in developmental hell to Silverface loathing the fact that his game wasn't what it's cracked up to be. He even takes a jab at how DLCs don't really seem to matter in the end. It almost feels like a Wreck-It Ralph scenario, only much more cynical. Overall, while not the most interesting bonus fight, it just screams Suda 51 in every insane sense. Also, it really puts things into perspective regarding DLC characters. Are they really happy being glorified extras? Throughout the Mass Effect franchise, there's been whisperings of a mysterious figure known as the Shadow Broker. Who is the Broker? In a sense, he's the world's best hacker, gathering personal information on anyone and selling it off to the highest bidder. How does he get all this info? No one knows, but having access to that much information makes him a huge threat. More so that he's only loyal to the one who gives him the best offer. However, in the Mass Effect 2 DLC, Lair of the Shadow Broker, the veil is finally lifted. With a title like that, what did you expect?
For if knowledge is power, then a god am.
While the Broker himself isn't much to look at, he's definitely more of a threat than we thought. Our only option? Duke it out, guns blazing and fist to face. As for the fight itself, it's kinda the same with Silverface. It's not bad, not at all, and Broker definitely isn't a slouch, but the battle itself is pretty basic. You shoot his shields until they go down, then you hit him when he's vulnerable, lather, rinse, repeat, done. But the lore around the fight, spot on. We've seen passing mentions of the broker and even got to meet some of his flunkies in the previous games leading up to this point, making this confrontation a lot more built up and not out of the blue. Adding to it, this whole shebang is also a major stepping stone for Liara's story arc as she ends up taking his place as the new broker. She promises to do right by her new title, but since she's got access to a lot of info, you may want to delete your browsing history just in case.
We know what you've been doing. Cut it out.
Amongst the tinkering specialists of the Sheikah tribe lies the spiritually devout Sheikah monks. Finding them throughout Breath of the Wild and completing their trials will grant you spirit orbs, which is required to extend your health and stamina. Needless to say, you're gonna need lots of that should you find yourself taking on the Champion's Ballad. At the end of that road awaits Monk Maz Koshia. Maz Koshia is a very different kind of Sheikah monk, as he's not just a scrawny meditator who couldn't shower to save his life. No, he's a scrawny meditator who can't shower to save his life and prefers to kick some butt to do so instead. The Champion's Ballad has you completing all the Champion's songs by rematching the blights within the illusory realm. After all the songs are completed, you're permitted to enter the final labyrinth and challenge the monk behind the quest himself. As the fight initiates, you can see what Maz specializes in: teleportation and ambush. You're definitely gonna have to prioritize your reflexes here. There's only a few precious seconds worth of opening for you to land a few blows on him before he takes flight again. After he's taken enough damage, he pulls off a shadow clone jutsu to surround you some more. As typical with these kinds of tricks, you gotta find the real Maz hiding behind all these duplicates and smack him around some more. But the really exciting part rolls in once he reaches half health. Maz goes full Ultraman on you as he flies above and fires lasers over to your direction. You could either take the long way around attacking him by shooting arrows to his eye, or deflect one of his lightning mines back at him to drag him back down to Earth. Beating the Battle Monk is absolutely worth the flex, as he then rewards you with the greatest invention of man Hyrule has ever seen: a motorbike. Now I can commit mass felony and lose the cops behind me. Screw you, Hylian laws! In all seriousness, Maz Koshia doesn't really have any tie-ins with the main story. Heck, the atmosphere is pretty standard as far as Breath of the Wild goes. That said, the fight itself is still a lot of fun, with many different ways to approach it and figuring out your own solutions. Knowing when to time your stasis and keep the boss vulnerable longer is definitely a key factor to getting your way around this Master Monk. Still, if that's too standard for you, you can try the exotic way around and distract him with some good old bananas. Hey, to his credit, look at him. Give the man a sandwich.
Don't you just love it when all-powerful entities get mutilated by the stupid?
In the Bloodborne expansion, The Old Hunters, we're brought to a whole new nightmare world and a new slew of, handsome devils to deal with. Among these beauties, I'm not even sure how to describe this one. How did this pitch meeting even go? Let's make a malformed fetus that uses its placenta as a weapon. Cause I really think that's what we're looking at. Okay, more specifically, we're looking at the undead child of the great being Kos, I don't know. When you first encounter it, it doesn't even acknowledge your existence. It's way too busy looking up at the sky, mourning the loss of its mother and the cursed half-life it now leads.
Aw, so it's kind of like Cubone! Only instead of wearing its mother's skull, it carries around one of her organs.
How is that better?
It's not, but would you rather we made this comparison?
I'm just a prom night dumpster baby. I got no mom or dad.
I give my co-writers way too much freedom.
Anyway, the minute you irritate it, it lashes out at you, screaming and swinging its placenta like a club, desperate to make you feel the pain that it feels. It can even tear pieces of its weaponized organ off and use them as projectiles. Halfway through, its little membrane cape turns into a huge pair of wings, and it gains a deadly lightning attack and really corrosive blood attacks. Overall, the battle is tense, it's scary, and it's probably not gonna sit right on your stomach. While the Orphan of Kos' fight is definitely one of the hardest in Bloodborne, there really isn't much of a setup for this one. We're not even sure what its full story is other than its mother and some speculations. And really, the only reason it got into a fight with you is that you bothered it. So, yeah, this one's on you. But with what little we know, there's a sense of relief when you finally do slice it down. Partly because of how tough the creature is, just knowing that you're ending its suffering. When you finally smite the undead embryo, you walk away with the Kos parasite weapon, which is kind of just a glorified boxing glove. But when you mix it with milkweed rune later on, you get your very own tentacle weapon. And giant broccoli head. Hey, it does arcane damage, so it's worth it. In a way. I have not seen enough hentai to know where this is going. The storytelling of Dark Souls is in the background, to put it lightly. After some brief exposition, you're thrown into the world of Lordran with equally vague goals. As you explore, you begin to slowly piece together the backstory through the various item descriptions. One of the characters you learn about is the mysterious Artorias.
Shepherd Artorias?
Wrong one. There we go. Then, via the Artorias of the Abyss DLC, we were given the opportunity to go back in time and fight him. Provided you can figure out how to do so.
Dark Souls, as difficult as it is cryptic.
Once there, you'll eventually come face to face with Artorias himself. I'll let the intro do the talking. As one of the 4 knights of Lord Gwyn, Artorias is an absolute beast to fight against. Despite him wielding a greatsword, he's deceptively fast and can easily interrupt your attempts to heal. Heck, he can even buff himself. There's no real way to cheese him. You have to learn his patterns or die trying. Did I mention he does all this with a crippled arm? Interestingly enough, Artorias isn't even the final boss of the DLC. That honor goes to Manus. Okay, there's no canon pronunciation as far as I know. Okay, give me a break. In spite of that, Artorias is such a well-done boss fight and character that he's easily the most memorable part of the DLC. He serves as yet another example of the epic 1v1 duels that the series is known for.
Besides, where else are you gonna find a one-armed swordsman tainted by the abyss?
Hey, honey, I'm ordering sandwiches. Do you want anything special on yours?
Extra mustard.
But you hate mustard.
Give me the extra mustard. I need the yellow sauce.
Honey, are you okay?
Give me the yellow sauce!
I'm calling the ER.
Well, that was a weird intro. So, Pokemon. Sword and Shield has been on these lists a few times at this point. And can you blame me? The battles never had more spectacle than with the addition of Dynamax and Gigantamax forms. Despite this and all the other features of Gen 8, the post-game was pretty lackluster. There was a post-game story, a battle tower, and rematches, but no new areas to explore and catch additional Pokemon. Well, luckily, Nintendo decided to finally join the modern age with the addition of DLC packs for Pokemon! Yay! Okay, I'm being too mean. The DLCs did what they promised, adding new areas, Pokemon, and challenges for the player to experience. And one of these challenges was a doozy. In the Isle of Armor DLC, you join a dojo led by Leon's master,
Mustard!
oh, now I get the intro,
Mustard?
is your normal, easygoing master similar to Jiraiya or Orochi. But like those two, you can figure out pretty quickly there is more to him than meets the eye. After getting cub food, you are tasked to go to one of 2 towers to be able to evolve him to one of 2 unique forms and types. When you get to the top tower of your choice,
Mustard!
is awaiting you. And yeah, he backflips into a true master and fights you with his own Kung Fu. But that isn't the battle we're talking about. Oh no, my friends. When you get to the end of the DLC,
Mustard?
challenges you for one final battle on the trial grounds, and he packs a punch. Despite being a former fighting type gym leader, his team is pretty balanced. He has a fast Lycanroc to Stealth Rock, a Luxray and Corviknight to tank hits, and a Mienshao and Komo to do massive damage. But it gets even more insane as his final Pokemon is the legendary Urshifu, using the type and form you didn't choose when picking a tower. Not only do they have a unique dark or water type move that can pierce buffs, but they also have a unique Gigantamax form that can do a lot of damage if you aren't prepared. Plus, his team team is higher level than Hop's and Leon's rematch team, so he is the strongest trainer in the game level-wise. While not a dramatic world-ending fight by any means, this fight became one of the best parts of the DLC. Honestly, just seeing Mustard sitting cross-legged on the couch playing Pokemon Quest of all things on his Switch, and then switching to kick your butt with the strongest team in the game is both funny and epic. And yeah, his team gets even stronger when you beat both DLCs and the Galarian Star Tournament, so that's even more insane.
Don't let's be silly.
I'm sure by now, most of you have heard of the indie darling known as Hollow Knight. But just in case you've been living under a rock alongside our buggy friends, allow me to catch you up to speed. Hollow Knight is a story about a lone bug knight traversing through a fallen kingdom in the vein of a Metroidvania. As befitting any game in the genre, Hollow Knight has some killer boss fights. Allow me to tell you of the one true king. Troopmaster Grimm rides into Dirtmouth one day with his circus after the knight accidentally summons them by lighting a torch. After completing a few tasks for the Troopmaster, which mainly include taking his child around Hollow Nest in order to feed on the flames of a fallen kingdom, the Troopmaster invites you to dance. This dance turns out to be the deadly dance of battle. Upon defeating the Troopmaster, he bows to you and the crowd applauds. The Troopmaster then congratulates you on a show well performed and bids you to harvest the last of the embers of Hollow Nest. I should note that you have an option. You can kick Grimm and his circus out of Hollow Nest right then and there by returning to the torch that summoned the circus and extinguishing it. But are you seriously gonna do that? You don't know what kind of 5-star meal you're dumping in the trash if you do that. Upon claiming the last of Hollow Nest's ember for the child, you return to find the circus empty and the Troopmaster asleep. His dreams seem troubled. Using the Dream Nail, you dive into his sleep and there you discover the source of the Troopmaster's restless slumber, Nightmare King Grimm. What is this being? Is it Grimm's true form? Is it a demon possessing the Circus Master? None can say. All we know is that a powerful enemy has appeared before us and that it must fall like every other foe placed before us. Like the other dream bosses in Hollow Knight, Nightmare King Grimm is basically a souped up version of his Waking World counterpart. In this case, Troopmaster. Given Troopmaster was already one of the hardest bosses you'd ever faced up to that point, an even more powerful version was no small matter. The game knows it too. Nightmare King Grimm is bestowed with the highest honor a Hollow Knight boss can receive, a full-screen title card. This trait is only shared by the Radiants and Absolute Radiants, the so-called true final bosses of Hollow Knight. Of course, there is one big thing that sets Nightmare King Grimm apart from fellow DLC boss Absolute Radiance: the music. The instant the fight starts, you are bombarded by powerful percussion and an overwhelming organ. Soon they're joined by an almost reverent choir and support trumpets. This isn't just a fight to the death. This is a performance. Should you play your part perfectly, your reward will be the defeat of the Nightmare King. When you awake, the circus is gone, and the only evidence they were there at all is Grimm's child, fully grown thanks to your effort. Just another mystery in Hollow Nest's long line of them, but a mystery that will linger in your mind forevermore.
Hey honey, you know what time it is? It's time for the Kingdom Hearts entry!
Kingdom Hearts 3 was one of the most anticipated games of all time. Even before being officially announced, fans had speculated for over a decade on how it would conclude the series, or at least the Dark Seeker saga. When 3 finally came out in 2019, reactions were positive to mixed. While few people outright hated it, you'd be hard-pressed to find people that thought it was the best one. One of the main criticisms towards 3 was that it was simply too easy. It constantly hands you all kinds of overpowered tools as early as the first world. Yes, other games in the series had overpowered things before, but 3 took it to infinity and beyond. Critical Mode attempted to alleviate this by making the enemies stronger and giving you less MP. Unfortunately, this just gave you all the more incentive to spam links. In response to this, we got the Limit Cut episode in the Remind DLC. Think the data battles from 2 Final Mix on steroids, and more importantly, way more fair. Plus, they made Luxor not suck. Of course, these bosses are just as, if not more difficult than the data battles. Yay, Dark Riku. Should you manage to defeat all 13 members, you will unlock a battle against Yozora. For context, he was the guy from the fake ad and the secret movie. How hard is the fight? I'll let him sum it up.
Sorry, but I don't lose.
He's not joking.
Yozora, being a character from a more heavily sci-fi universe, has a smorgasbord of attacks to annihilate you with. Sword, crossbow, lasers, oh my. You're basically fighting a fellow maxed out JRPG protagonist. He even gets his own summon. Heck, he can even steal your Keyblade if you're not careful. And now we know how Roxas felt. Oh, and don't even think about using a Kupo coin for auto-revive either. He will use it against you.
Did you really believe it would be this easy?
But for as fiendishly difficult as Yozora is, you're still perfectly able to counter everything. Like with Lingering Will, you can defeat him by learning his patterns and reacting correctly. It's especially liberating after how poorly designed the super bosses were in Birth by Sleep. Just don't be surprised if it takes you a couple hundred tries to win. And win or lose, you see one final cutscene where Nomura not so subtly tries to recreate 13 verses. We then find out that Yozora was voiced by none other than Dylan Sprouse. Are you saying the whole time we were getting absolutely demolished by this kid?
Imagine how hard it is to be the handsome twin.
Well, that's one way to get the Disney Channel into Kingdom Hearts 3.
Monster Hunter is known for its terrifying elder dragons. These are dragons that can bend the elements to their will and cause widespread devastation. However, even among those dragons, there is a class of dragon where the very presence of them could devastate entire ecosystems. The Black Dragons. And even among those dragons, there is only one that humanity considers true evil. A dragon whose hatred for humanity lasts after death and haunts the very armor they would craft from its skin, Fatalis. Fatalis, seeing how humanity creates its weapons and armor from the very monsters they fight, holds a deep hatred for humanity for this massacre of its fellow monsters. To seek revenge, Fatalis attacked the kingdom of Shrade, a small kingdom, but one teeming with life. To scorn humanity for its use of monsters, Fatalis melted the corpses of the humans it killed and used it as its own armor. This was both to spite and mock humanity for their usage of monster corpses. Despite humanity's best efforts, there were no winners in this fight. Shrade was destroyed and few survivors remained. Even the Fatalis that attacked them survived and became the White Fatalis in earlier games. However, Shrade still remained, just in ruins, and the story of its fall exists, not an official record, but in the stories of children. Fatalis wasn't just a black dragon, it was the Black Dragon, the one that humanity considers to be its greatest enemy.
Holy shit.
Yay!
Okay, well, that was more insane than I could have imagined. While there are many Fatalis fights throughout the series, the one we are talking about is the one from Monster Hunter World Iceborne, the final major update of the DLC, simply titled Fatalis. To fight Fatalis, the Hunter's Commission goes to the ruins of Castle Shrade to take on this beast. When they get there, as they are mesmerized by the history around them, Fatalis attacks, and both your hunter and the excitable A-lister have to hold it off as you wait for the rest of the commission to arrive. Alright, enough backstory. I want to hit things. At least before he hits me, because Fatalis hits really hard. Even with fully augmented armor, he can two-shot you with his physical attacks and one-shot you with his fire if you don't have good enough resistance. You will need to make good usage of the cannons and ballistae in the area to knock it down and deal damage to its head. Once you get him down to 80% health, it will fly into the sky and, well, it'll fry the coke. Fatalis will melt everything with its breath, and the A-lister helps you get to safety. While he's down, you are still in and you can finally call for help. Fatalis will start getting more aggressive in its fire attacks, but you should have more allies to help turn the tides against it. Use the moving ballistae to deal massive damage, and use the barricade in the very back to survive its massive flame attack that will cook you if it hits. After the second fire attack, you would need to weaken the head to weaken the flames, or die trying. Eventually, the Dragonator will be ready for use to do massive damage to Fatalis, knock it down, and keep whacking the head. Monster Hunter's Proof of a Hero main theme plays as you continue dealing damage to this massive dragon. And finally, after hitting it enough to get through a massive HP pool that's only beaten by Iceborne's final boss, boom, it's dead. Sorry for the long section, but Fatalis is a monster so rooted in Monster Hunter's lore and history that it would be criminal to not give it the length it deserves. It was an absolutely incredible final fight for a 3-year journey that most hunters went through playing through World. And while there are other Fatalis fights throughout the series, the one in World shines through, not just as a DLC boss, but one where you fight history itself. Corey Haim, South Park. Morgan Freeman's not enough? Well, here's a similar package, goth kids included. Anamkos, Fire Emblem Fates. While Revelations is hardly narratively cohesive, the final boss was at least a thrilling challenge. Hammerhead, Spider-Man. Always nice to see one of Spidey's underrated baddies get a chance in the spotlight. Kamsin, Metal Gear Rising. Fighting a halberdier mech as a chainsaw doggo? Fuck yeah! Sephiroth, Smash Ultimate. Not a boss fight in the traditional sense, but you do fight him as part of an exclusive event, so it counts, I think? After tearing down the entire purging force run by the 7 deities, the finale of Asura's Wrath pits the brothers in arms, Asura and Yasha, against Vlitra Goma, the source of constant impure chaos purging the people of Gaia. Destroying the Vlitra finally does the world its overdue justice and frees it from the suffering caused both by Goma and the deities. So it looks like everything's all over, right? The world is saved, Asura reunites with his daughter, and I can't think of a better setup for a happy ending.
Second. Now, if only the game sold enough for there to be a sequel instead of this forced padlock.
Anyways, if that bit of lockpicking isn't a big enough hint, the story isn't quite over. Olga takes a desperate shot at revenge and tries to kill Mithra, but through Deus Ex Machina, without the Deus, Olga gets killed. And so comes forth the one who pulled the strings of this play, the Golden Spider, the same one who's been fueling Asura's bottomless wrath to keep on fighting no matter how often he falls. And what's behind the curtain of this enigmatic entity?
Yes! I'm finally gonna talk about Chakravartin! Praise be to the gaming gods! Not that gaming god.
Chakravartin, the so-called creator, has been masterminding the chaos of Gaia as a test to bring rise to his successor. Creating Vlitra and initiating conflict between the deities has all been part of said test drawn to his chosen subject, Asura. In an effort to complete his domination, he abducts Mithra and tests Asura one last time. Granted, this whole ordeal seems a little last minute, especially since there's very little time spent on building up the creator's presence. Sort of. There's a few hints, but there could have been more. Doesn't help that he's already locked behind a paywall. The question: is fighting him worth passing that barricade?
Nah, it seems like too much trouble. He's number 1 on the list. What do you think?
One of the key reasons why this finale is worth it is that for something that happens so late, it still dedicates a lot of time to take in the pressure and atmosphere of the situation. You don't just jump straight into the final battle. Rather, you get some time to step back as Asura loses his mantra core trying to engage Chakravartin for the first time. Yasha then takes Asura to safety and helps him recover. Only after Yasha gave up his own core to save Asura does the true finale take center stage. Asura flies across space as a titanic battleship, making his way up to the creator past the many planets and moons obstructing his path. Finally, Asura reaches the event horizon, where Chakravartin accepts his progress and is ready to hand the world over under Asura's care. Asking for his hand, Asura, of course, reaches forward.
There's something on your face! It was pain!
Dude, Chakravartin, buddy, broski. You basically offer control of the universe to the Hulk, What were you expecting?
Ooh man, this multi-arm maker is out for your blood. The fight starts off rather standard as Chakravartin generates floor hazards and fires energy balls towards you. Then, he shatters the event horizon, taking the fight straight to Naraka. You'll fly downwards while dodging a series of lasers the boss fires off. The only way to really damage him is by deflecting one of his own energy balls back at him. Tear down his last attempt at reality warping, and you get your chance at giving a sixth-armed beating to this metalhead. After you share a few auras and mudas with this idol of infinity, you approach the next stage of the fight. Chakravartin reveals his true form, an ominous, metallic, skeleton-like figure. We see just how omnipresent he really is when he's able to reduce Yozora to his base power with a single gentle touch. On top of that, his mantra turns a shade of black and gray as he tears into Yozora via giant daggers, spirit bombs, and matching his prowess in physical combat. Your attacks do next to nothing to him until Yozora throws the second biggest fist of rage he's ever conjured, driving Chakravartin all the more vulnerable. At his most desperate state, Chakravartin moved on to breaking the fourth wall, creating commands for his own QuickTime events. This is definitely his attempt to confuse the players and throw them off the game. But in the end, Yozora takes hold of him, slowly shattering his limbs and driving him completely indefensive. Only then does Yozora fully accumulate his wrath and throw the biggest fist of rage, destroying all of the creator's very being. This was a spectacular fight, making perfect use of the scenario being a fight between one all-powerful entity against another. And to top it all off, it marks a proper end to the epic story. The value of most DLC bosses come down to how much they add to the game. This one completes the game. It might have taken a lot of rough steps to get there, but given what I got in return, I'm glad I took them.
I'm the Fiery Joker. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna drink out of the 6-month-old can of tea. Why am I always written to be the stupid?
Hey everyone, this is Josh. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share the video around. Please check out my other social media like my Twitter, Twitch, and Tumblr. Check out my other channels such as Joshua Burner for reactions and other stuff, Dragon Fighter Gaming for tabletop, and Maz Koshia for cartoons. Consider checking below the video and donating to my Patreon, Streamlabs for my merchandise, or becoming a YouTube member. Thanks for watching.